Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of It's Within by Beauty Within, a podcast exploring the depths of beauty and the magic within us all. It's been a while.
It's been you guys. Yeah, from the last episode, Rose moved across country, moved in with her mans, unpacked her whole life.
Went to Asia, and now I'm back in New York with Fel.
Yes, it's been a roller coaster. Time waits for no one.
All right, so in the previous episode, we talked about how when anything is taken to the extreme, it usually turns into a not so good thing.
Yeah.
So how do you find the balance with that, and how do you be honest with yourself, and how do you kind of navigate all of that? So in today's episode, we thought we'd talk about when we say, oh, when I'm doing skincare, when I'm self-caring, when I'm applying makeup, when I'm dressing, I'm doing it for myself. And I think most of us can agree that we're doing it for ourselves. Mm-hmm. But if we take it a couple levels deeper, are we really doing it for ourselves?
Yeah, that's the question. How much of everything we do is actually for ourselves? So think about that for a second, because I think we don't give ourselves that time a lot of the time. And this doesn't just pertain to skincare and self-care, which was our first episode. We're actually extending it now because it applies to literally everything we do. The clothes we put on our body, the fashion we choose to express, the relationships we have and we build. And so some of the topics that we're going to cover in this episode include...
They're juicy. The male gaze.
The male gaze. There's like social etiquette and
social contracts. Dressing for other people is a double-edged sword.
How we show up, why we show up, just opening up the conversation. I think it's a really interesting thing once you get into your motivations and what drives you to do these things.
And we have a very special announcement coming at the end of the episode.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that.
It has to do with a little launch. Whether it is skincare, whether it is beauty, because I know you got into beauty pretty early on, mostly because of acne.
Yeah.
How much of it did you do for yourself, and how much for it did you actually do for other people now that you look back in retrospect?
It's really interesting looking back, because with acne, you actually start off doing it for yourself because you want to protect yourself.
When you say protect yourself, what do you mean?
Protect the insecurity. Yeah, so first I think is there's a problem, which is acne. You look different, and then there comes the insecurity attached to the problem, and then no one wants to be seen different or, you know, stick out like a sore thumb or whatever. Stick out like a sore thumb. And then you kind of go through educating yourself and like, why? And if I think about it now, even though I was doing that for me, the very end of that chapter of the book is really still about people, because I still want to look a certain way in front of people. Like, even when I look back now, this was neither right or wrong, because it actually helped me through the years to develop what is real confidence. Like, it took years, like more than 10 years, to actually be okay with not wearing makeup until I was like early 20s, 23 or something. I would finally be able to walk out.
So you started beauty makeup stuff at 13?
Yeah, I started at like 14. It started with a little bit of concealer that had salicylic acid in it. And then I would spread that concealer further more on my face, because
then all over your
acne
face.
grew. Yeah. And then I would get, shamed for it, with my dad always being like, you're making it worse. Just don't wear anything. It's fine. Let it breathe. And like, I don't want to go to school and have a bunch of volcanic pimples on my face. And so you just get really good at like covering it up. But going back to like, how much of it was doing it for myself, I still think everything I did was still for myself. But it was at that time, self was so intrinsically tied to everything else. So it was almost impossible for me to like distinguish that. Until now, I think I'm at a place socially, mentally, personally, where it's freeing to another level, where it's like, yeah, you're 30, you don't care.
You really don't. I mean, you still do, but then just it's different.
It's different, yeah. Like, I no longer go out of my way to cover things. I think that's the main thing. Or like change things. It just kind of is like, okay, acceptance. Or if there is something that I can change that isn't permanently disfiguring, then I will. Yeah, but it's more inner.
So if you have to be very honest with yourself, if you gave it a percentage, how much was for yourself and how much was for other people in your, let's say, like teens?
I would say like 70% is for other people, 30% is me, because the need for it came from other people.
Yes.
So a lot of that is external validation.
I mean, as you were saying, I was just like, our sense of self is also so, it's like plasma. When we're that young.
Yeah.
Like, you think you know yourself, and like we do know ourselves and we are ourselves, but I think our sense of who we are, the things we value, what we care about, how much we want other people to like, and their opinions to affect us, we're just still figuring it out.
Yeah, we're like
so it's
flabba.
normal. Yeah, so it's very normal to kind of have these fluctuations or to not really know.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I feel like that in itself is a blessing though, because, you know, on the channel, we also get people who get like adult acne, for example, or like they face something later on in life and they may have never experienced anything kind of like remotely traumatic earlier on. So it's almost as though they face like what I had to go through, not just me, but like everyone in the younger self in their adult years, which I would say is maybe even more confusing because it's like, oh, these are the things, like, this has never happened. Like, you're tested in a different phase of life, and it's so much more challenging in its own way, too, as an adult.
Yeah. Like, would you have rather gotten acne when you had it, or would you rather get it in your 30s or 40s? Didn't you say did your mom used to have acne?
Oh, yeah, my mom still has acne. She has cysts.
But she's had acne since she was young.
Yeah.
Okay, no.
Yeah. No, I also had 2 waves of acne. I had teenage acne and adult acne, so come at me.
Do you think one is better than the other?
I think as an adult, you're more well equipped with handling things,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Yeah.
You might be just as confused, but I think the people you surround yourself with, the resources you're able to access are way more,
That's true.
you know,
Go
potent.
to the derm,
and-
ask your friends.
Yeah.
You probably have like 1 or 2 friends who've gone through it.
Yeah. But as a kid, there's only limited resources. You're not going to go to the library and like pick up like a dermatology book. What about your
Journey.
your journey of like finding how much am I actually doing for myself?
So I think when it comes to skin, I've been pretty lucky. The only like issue that I really had was eczema, and I think that in my mind it's like there's nothing I can do about it. So I kind of just lived with it. It like gave my arms blotches, but I'm like whatever, it's fine. I'm not going to not live because I'm scared of looking a certain way.
Yeah.
So I like to broaden our scope a little to the world of fashion.
Fashion.
In your high school years, you just dress like everyone else for the most part, unless you're like a fashionista and you just knew your sense
Blazer
of style.
and puff.
Yeah. For college, I think it's when we start kind of growing into ourselves, growing into our style. And I would describe my style as like edgy, black, strappy, cutouts, boots.
Think NastyGal.
Yeah, NastyGal, the retail store.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I got NastyGal shipped home, my mom saw the box and had a panic attack.
Why?
She's like,
What
what's
was on
in
it?"
here? No, it just says nasty
it said
gal.
nasty.
She's like, why are you nasty gal? Why would you get something from this website? What are they selling? I'm like, oh mom, it's closed. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So that was how I dressed. Because to me, I was like, oh, it's different. It's still kind of classy, but it's not like boring classy. And then even though it was like a little revealing, it wasn't too revealing. So I still teetered between looking put together, but also like a bit more
Yeah.
edgy.
Yeah.
Now that I look back, And if I'm very honest with myself, like maybe 15% was actually for myself. Because, over the past 10 years, when I like really sit down, reflect on who I was back then and like my intentions and what I really wanted and the things that I valued, it wasn't just like, oh, I like realized this. It's like, I've done a lot of thinking. I've really tried to get to the root. And the other like 90% is for guys.
The male gaze.
Yeah, like truly the male gaze. And I think like because I grew up with a bunch of guy cousins, I got along with guys better. I just instinctually knew what they liked. I think it's this like deeply rooted desire to be liked. It sounds a lot, but that's the truth.
Yeah. No, but I think that's exactly what we want to talk about, right? Because I think like as much as we say we're doing it for ourselves, like I think we're like biologically wired to attract the other species in a way.
The other species. The other specimen.
The other
gender, chromosome.
In a way. And like as you were saying that, it reminds me of in college or like uni. So I did Asia Pacific studies and one of the semesters was about Japan and we had to like take out a cultural aspect and write about it. I actually wrote about male gaze. And I just thought it was so interesting because if you think about Japan, it's such an interesting culture where everything seems to be around, anime.
Yeah.
The way they draw characters. It's for the male gaze. Like there's all these hyper imaginated scenarios or like characters and situations that are essentially about that. And so much of it is around that. But yeah, it's like these subliminal things and subconscious things. How much of these subconscious things do we do for other people without realizing and kind of like rationalizing for ourselves that it is for us? So yeah, I think it's a really tricky one to ask yourself because I don't think normally people want to admit it, especially now with, like feminism. I do it because I want to do it, like independence, individualism and all that. It's hard to kind of be like, yeah, okay, I actually still at the end of the day want to appease or please or that type of thing.
To get love and attention from.
Which is a fundamental need of humans. So that's not wrong, right?
Yeah.
I guess what we see now with social media, not to sound like social media is bad, but like honestly it does kind of, we all know it has effects on mental health. And I think whatever issues humans had with lack of attention, need, likability, it's just heightened and what's the word that I can never say?
Exacerbated. That's a $5 word.
Yeah, everything is just heightened.
That was more of macro, right? Like social media in general. And a more micro scale is you can see very easily who your crush is following or who your boyfriend is following. And then that can also make you compare yourself to them and want you to dress a certain way or look a certain way. And that was like a lot of what drove me to try to look a certain way. So I think kind of like going back to, if you ask my current self, it's like 10/90, right? But if you ask my then self, I would say 100% for myself. And I think that's also fair. It's not that you don't know better, but that is truly how we felt, which is very valid. Because we all start from not knowing. And I think that's like the surface.
Yeah.
The lower you go, the lower you'll realize, oh, maybe I was wrong, or oh, maybe I was right. But you never will know until you start kind of ascending down the list of questions of like questioning your own intentions and values and why and where is it really coming from, which takes years.
Okay, so what if for people listening, they're like, but why do I care? Like it's not hurting anyone.
I don't think it matters. Like especially if you think it, like, why do I care? Then like, I think it's fine. But if there's any like seed of doubt, just kind of like follow it. Because I think it's like human nature to want to pursue the truth in some form or another.
Yeah.
And so just allow yourself and allow the curiosity to kind of go there.
This is the best example of like when we think it doesn't affect other people or it really doesn't matter and we keep going, right? Of course, keep going. But I think like what I've realized over time is that that's actually how burnout happens. Like you think it's nothing until it becomes something.
Until it becomes like the biggest thing in your life. Yeah.
Like it's a non-insecurity and then you're really insecure about something, or like something happens and it heightens it, or you don't think it brings anxiety and then all of a sudden you're like an anxious mess. It just can swing you from one end of the extreme to the other. So I would actually say, like, if you can, even if you think it's nothing, I just love thinking about it anyway to see if there's anything, because most of the times I've realized there is most definitely something within ourself. And I think
There's always things.
There's always, right? And I think like we say this because Ro and I practice spiritual practice, and there's always like digging to the truth. Like,
Going to the root.
what is the root? What is the truth of like why we're doing what we're doing? And it's just really interesting to see like, wow, that's why I was doing it like that.
To kind of reword what I said earlier, there's for sure something, but whether it's time to face it or not, I think there's a time and place for everyone.
And then there's the other end of doing it for yourself, which is like, you know how some people have always been barred with fear of doing something? Heights, for example, or going out and doing something alone because they've never done it.
Eating a meal by yourself.
Eating a meal by yourself.
Social anxiety, public speaking.
I feel like those are the things that have more of that is really doing it for yourself because it's uncomfortable. Doing it for yourself, if you think of it on a scale of comfort, the more uncomfortable it is, the more beneficial it is. The more comfortable doing something for yourself is, the more it's actually just soothing something within that doesn't want to reveal itself yet, whether it's like vulnerability, like pains. Vulnerability pains itself to reveal itself.
Yeah.
But then after that, like think about how good you feel when you've overcome
I think
it.
that's the best thing you can actually do for yourself, is to be honest with yourself and to
Yeah.
ask yourself these questions.
And it's uncomfortable.
Because it's so uncomfortable. It's kind of like our brains are like our muscles. First few times you're like, oh, I'm so tired. Like, I don't want to do this. But then the more that you do it, I think for us now, it's just like something happens. We're like, oh, interesting. Why did this happen? Where's it coming from? Like, what, is it trying to show me something? Is it trying to teach me something?
Yeah.
But before I would be like, oh my God, this thing happened.
So giving yourself that time to like think about, okay, what is this discomfort? Why do I feel uncomfortable? And is there something really good on the other side of this discomfort, or is it just plain discomfort? And like sometimes I think it takes repeated situations to remind us that it is that way. So an example for me I can apply to like social anxiety. It is so uncomfortable to feel social anxiety. But
when you guys look at Fel, it's so perplexing to think that she
I would
goes
have
through all of that in her mind when she enters a social situation.
Hi, I'm here.
And anxious.
But I feel like that should be what people put forward as social anxiety because it reveals itself in so many different ways, right? So the discomfort that comes with everything related to that, like anxiety, nervousness, judgment, loneliness, I don't know, whatever you feel in that moment, that set of feelings is so great because like I imagine if I overcome this, then I'll no longer feel like that. Versus if I just had a 3-day bender and I feel terrible and just uncomfortable. That's an example where I would be like, yeah, I don't think there's actually anything good at the end of this. Not to say like don't, right?
Yeah.
But like those are kind of the questions I'd ask. Is there actually a pot of gold on the other side of overcoming this? And then should I do it again to try? Or is this something I should just put to rest and retire? So yeah, this idea of if you're going to say do something for yourself, like dressing, let's say, I don't know how comfort. Well, actually for now when we dress, comfort above all.
100% comfort.
Going back to when we were younger, a lot of things we wore just
So
weren't
uncomfortable.
like you can barely move.
Yeah.
No.
What about skincare now? How much of it do you think you're doing it for yourself, and how much do you think you're doing it for other people?
Skincare I really just do for myself. And honestly, there are days where I'll just put on a moisturizer. I don't do anything. I don't want to do anything. And then there are other days like on a Saturday where I have more time, then I'll go through the 3-4 steps and a tool. But honestly, that's not everyday type of thing. With skincare, doing it for myself means however much energy I can expend that day or night is what I do. And I don't kind of like push myself because it's not really changing the world. If I like see myself and I'm like, yeah, that's all I need today, then fine.
What about beauty?
I think beauty is more for other people. And actually dressing is for other people now that I think about it. It's a sign of respect, I feel.
Tying it back to Japan, I love the concept of social contract. You show up and then you dress and look your best, not only for yourself, but for like other people, not to please them. But it's like, if as a society, we're always thinking about other people, not in like a obsessive way, but just like, how can I be, nicer, more polite? As you're saying, like it's a sign of respect.
Like actually thinking about it, doing something for me, like that kind of statement is very self-centered. If you like kind of extract it for what it sounds like, it's like, I'm doing it for me. It doesn't have to be selfish. But I realize like a lot of the things we do when we show up in public, if I really want to do it to cultivate relationships and build myself, it really is to make other people feel comfortable. So I'm not going to show up to an event, for example, and dress like a slob because people will feel like this is not the place for that, right? You're dressing to match the environment. Like you can go above and beyond, right? Like great. But yeah, it's to suit the environment that you're in. Kind of like, when great speakers give a presentation, they're not saying it like they would speak personally.
Or like they won't give the same speech in the same way for every audience.
Yeah.
They'll tailor it to the audience and
the
like how they
city.
respond. Yeah.
Yeah, makeup I think makes people feel comfortable because I also wouldn't go up to a really nice event looking like chapped and disheveled. Like that's not the type of attention I want to bring, even though that's something that I might feel inside. So there's like a time and place to be almost like selfish and for you, I feel like, which is in the comfort of home, in a certain space. And then there's a time to kind of show up for the benefit of others. There's this show on Netflix called Mind Your Manners, and it's this Chinese American lady who teaches etiquette. And then just watching some of the episodes, like it's kind of entertaining in its own way. But etiquette also, like the way you eat, is also to make other people feel comfortable. Like not to necessarily bring attention to yourself because there's other ways to talk about yourself, I guess. I don't know. That was just something that came up as we were talking.
I think we can dedicate a whole episode on that topic because I think like I can foresee our audience and just people in general having questions.
Like?
When we talk about doing something for others and like wanting to make other people comfortable, like I know where you're coming from because like I feel the same way too. And then I'm just thinking of like comments that I've read or like,
like what?
rebuttals that people have said. If we take all the anger out of it, it's just more like a cynical or more of a pessimistic way to look at the world of like, why would you go out of your way to make someone comfortable if like the world is
burning?
or like if the whole world is against you, or why should you be nice if other people aren't nice, or like why should you do this if like other people aren't that, it's like the whole thing like nice people finish last or like things like that, right? Where it's like if you're always just a good person, then you're gonna get hurt, so might as well just be selfish and do what you want. Who cares what they think? Why do you care so much about showing up and like dress nicely? Why do you care so much about making other people feel comfortable when other people are making me feel uncomfortable all the time? Like that kind of thinking.
That is interesting.
And there's so many layers.
There's so many layers. I would say just for myself, thinking back on times when I've been more angry with the world versus peaceful with the world, I think that mentality has everything to do with how we like show up and be, right?
Yeah.
I just realized it's more taxing and more tiring to be angry and look at why other people aren't doing things for me. If my life is spent on that, like I realize I'm just tired. And
we're already tired.
And we're already tired, right? But if I choose to be kind, or if I choose to let that go, or I choose to be angry, or I choose to be frustrated, one expends more energy. And it's the anger that normally expends more energy. Like when we talk to our partners, what takes more energy? A rational conversation that talks about hard things, or a heated conversation that's talking about the same thing in a more roundabout.
Emotional and you can't really get your point across.
Right.
And they don't really understand and they get frustrated.
Yeah, like it takes me much more energy to cry. Like sometimes it feels good, right? But if I'm rage crying, then I have to control my cry. I have to also think about what I need to say, and I can't think clearly. And then I'm also trying to suppress my anger. And so all of these are happening just to say that, like, I'm tired. And I used to fight with my parents as well all the time. And I'd wake up and just be like disheveled. I'm so tired. Not saying like you have to walk away from every situation, but as we grow older, we like kind of hone the skills to kind of like communicate. There's this example in the book that I'm reading, The Courage to be Disliked.
The book is kind of like a Q&A between a philosopher and an older gentleman and a younger
youth. It's just called youth. Yeah. And the youth obviously has all these questions about like, what are you saying? I can't be angry. I can't be frustrated when someone does something to me. And then the philosopher was saying when there's a child and the child is arguing with the mother and the mother is scolding the child and they're going at it, and then all of a sudden the phone rings and then the mom goes over to pick up the phone and is like, hello. All of a sudden the tone changes.
The illusion is broken.
The illusion's broken. Like we've all had this, right?
This always happens.
Yeah. Or like even ourselves, we have to go pick up a phone
with Asian parents
mid-fight or whatever it is. The mom changed the tone. She has the whole conversation, hangs up the phone, continues yelling at the kid, and like they keep bickering. So in this situation, you can actually tell it's each person's decision to almost turn on anger. And it's also their decision to turn it off. But there's always ways to go around communicating what you actually want to say. And what usually leads to anger is the laziness of wanting to communicate. So I was like, whoa, very true.
Yeah.
It's like because you don't want to go through the effort of explaining yourself, explaining why you felt the way that you did. And so the shortcut is anger and frustration and saying you don't understand me. And I was like, wow, that is a perfect example.
It's like a perfect example of our society too. Like the people who would be like, oh, you know, why would you choose kindness, or why would you, you know, and like get stomped all over. To tie it back to this whole video, you choosing to be kind to people, you choosing to show up the way that you want to, you're actually doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
Like you yourself want to do that. And it just so happens to benefit other people. And I think that like distinction is very different from like, I'm going to be kind so that other people can do something. One thing, you're doing it for yourself and you don't care what other people do for you. Like, I'm going to be kind to people because I want to be kind to people, period.
Yeah.
However they respond to me and however they react, it doesn't affect me and doesn't bother me. And I'm not doing it for their anything.
Yeah.
Right? Versus like, I'm going to be kind and I'm going to be nice because I want something from other people and I want their validation or I want them to see me a certain way. This situation, like, you know, the latter, where like you get burned and then you get pessimistic and you get jaded. That's when it's like, why would you do that if like, you know, to tie everything back, it really is just doing it for yourself. Like figuring out who you are, what you care about, why you want to do makeup, why you want to do skincare, why you want to dress the way that you want to dress.
Yeah, that one's a hard one too.
Yeah.
I think it took ages, especially with like friendships, even like a little thing like gift giving. Gift giving is very selfless. You're giving a gift.
Yeah.
But I realized subconsciously, I think we're still wired to expect something back. So it's never truly, well, I had to like really think about this. Friendships too. Like you think, oh, unconditional friendship. But really, what is friendship built on kind of thing? So gift
Talk
giving.
about this in the next episode of the podcast. Actually.
Yeah, great topics. I can go out of my way and like love giving gifts, but it doesn't actually end there because you still want some sort of thanks. And then when you don't receive that, it's like you're kind of butthurt.
What if it's thanks and tears?
Oh yeah, like thanks in whatever it is. If there's no emotion, or let's say like they don't respond in a way that you anticipated, then you're kind of like, oh, did they? But it's like totally normal.
Like it?
Yeah.
Did they not want it? Should I return it? My social anxiety is kicking in.
So like something, I don't know, it's just very interesting. We're not saying like there's an answer to this, but everything we do is laced with some sort of expectation.
Or intention.
Intention.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like within that, there's, you know, the respect of saying thank you, obviously. But like the people pleasing part would like go above and beyond, do what you think they like, and like expect that back in a way, or like, you're my friend, why wouldn't you understand this, blah, blah, blah.
Do you not care about me? Do you not love me?
I'm doing it for myself. Like, I'm giving you this, sounds weird, but for myself, because I want to give this to you. Then it's done. I don't need your like, this is great. This is the best thing I've seen. Like, you're not dependent on the, and then what? Yeah. So I think that's like where I currently am with the, when you say you do something for yourself, I ask myself, if I did this, does my like contentment end with because I just wanted to do it? And that's it. If it is, then it really is for myself. I want to know what recently you've done for yourself, because you've also been in like some difficult transitioning times with moving over. And I think it's also, in terms of self-care, it's also really important to still do something for yourself. What do you do in times of need?
Well, to start from the more shallow surface things, I think like when I was younger, I didn't need to care about skincare or beauty that much. In college, I'd wear makeup to go clubbing and that's about it. Like, it wasn't to cover anything up really, but kind of like adding on to what you're saying earlier about you're now doing it for other people a bit more. I'm starting to, for the first time in my life, like wear concealer a little more, just like under my eye bags. And I'm like, oh, I do look a bit more presentable and alive. But I think now it's maybe like 90-10 of like, I will see something on my face and like want to cover up, but it's not in like as much of an insecure, like it is a little bit insecure, right? Which is why you do cover it up, but then it's not like as insecure as like I was before.
Still, at the end of the day, we want to feel good about ourselves. We still want to look good.
Yeah, we're human. And when I look in the mirrors, I'm like, oh, your pores are getting a little bigger. Your eye bags are getting a little darker. Your freckles are coming out a bit more and they're not leaving your face as much. But it's like there's still that underlying acceptance of this is who I am. This is what it means to be human. It is just a human experience and it is totally fine. And we have a podcast episode all about anti-aging that we'll link here and also down below. But in general, it's like even with the baseline understanding, you can still have feelings about what you wish was better or what you wish you look like, which is where makeup comes in. One thing that I've been doing for like fun is like Pilates, like classical Pilates with like the contraptions and all the straps.
Reformer.
the reformer, like classical, like the huge Cadillac and then all these different contraptions. I think it's really fun because I used to dance, just like movements and like the routines kind of come more naturally. It's like,
oh yeah, and as you age, you want to stretch.
Yeah, and like within classical Pilates, like stretching is baked into every other move. Like that's been fun and challenging in its own way. I do classes on my own and then also with James, and then it's just fun kind of seeing like a guy do it because he's like
watching a guy do like,
but then he's actually pretty flexible, but it's just fun like being able to share that with your partner too, but also to be able to do it with yourself. But this is more like surface makes me happy. What can really help with big transitions and just life and anger and fury and stress from your partner and from yourself and from your own mind, it's really taking a step back and carving out space for yourself to mull, to actually like go to a quiet place, go in your car, go in your closet, go somewhere where you can be alone or just close your door.
Go in your closet. That sounds so depressing.
Something. Yeah. If everything's already so overwhelming, go somewhere where it's like low-key a sensory deprivation tank where you can just be alone in your own thoughts and just breathe and allow yourself to hear yourself. I think when there's so much going on, when you're frustrated, when you're angry, there's just like a tornado of thoughts. So it's carving out that time and that space. It can also be meditation. It can also be swimming, exercise. Because behind everything, what I was seeking and what I needed and what I wasn't getting was like human connection.
Yeah, space and time helps a lot.
Yeah, it's like when couples fight, you know, a girl's been mulling over 1,000 things. She sees socks on the floor. She's like, why are there socks always on the floor?
That's the last straw.
And then the man goes,
they're just socks.
why is she so mad about socks?
Yeah.
And they really they genuinely believe she's just mad about the socks.
Yeah.
And like, you can't blame them because
it is
it's
just
a lot
a
simpler,
sock. Yeah.
right? And then The other party, let's just not even address sexes to these two parties.
It could be a roommate.
Yeah,
It could be anyone.
So the person who's been ruminating, like, you are valid in your rumination, but if these ruminations and thoughts in your mind aren't communicated, then like the other party, they're not gonna really know.
Yeah, it reminds me of like when I'm angry, I'm quiet. But when I was young, I'm quiet and I'm just boiling, right? But like as we learn to kind of unravel our thoughts and with the intention to communicate it in the future with that person, whoever it is. Now I say to Thomas, when I'm angry and you sense it, you don't have to come at me yet and ask me what's wrong. Just let me be, and then we'll open up the conversation in a while. And I'm not angry at you. I'm trying to figure out myself.
Give me my space.
Yeah, because I think at the beginning he used to be worried like, is there anything wrong?
Okay?
What did I do? Yeah, what did I? And I was like, we don't have to talk about it now. Like, let me put everything together because, like we know now it's not just one person's problem. It's like both people aren't getting something that they need or want. And so I'm trying to understand what I missed with him or like what he missed with me. And then we bring it up together and then find a solution.
Yes.
So yes, that space is so important. Like sometimes it's just a day or like a whole night where I don't say anything. I just keep doing things around the house and it's not like out of passive aggressiveness. It's like I just need to think. So anyway, I think that wraps up this second continuation of the dark sides of.
Yes.
As we realize there are many.
Yeah. And if you guys have more topics or suggestions or questions that you have, leave it in the comment section below and we'll see.
Or you can email at hello@beautywithin.com.
Yay.
Yes.
And before we go, we have a very special announcement. We have something upcoming for launch. It looks like a truffle.
Like a chocolate truffle.
When you unwrap the foil and you drop this little round sphere into hot water, it'll bloom. It's very on brand with Beauty Within, because we all want to bloom fully.
And as you can see from the podcast, we're all about blossoming from the inside out.
There's special messages for you guys throughout the whole journey.
Yes, as a reminder of presence and peace.
It's also harmony within like a full bloom, harmony with you creating it and your presence and slowing down and really enjoying as you take in its beauty, and then also harmony in like your body.
Yeah. And it's actually forcing you in a way subtly to slow down because you'll see it actually grow in front of you. And the meaning of that was kind of like how we see ourselves, reflecting on when we were younger to where we are now and where we will be in the future is always this constant cycle of growing and blossoming to be our best selves, I guess. So this launch is super special because we obviously don't always collaborate. We don't make products. We do have the jewelry collab with Ana Luisa, and that was also a very similar message of tying traditional concepts with modern design as well, all with the message of growing and being our best self. So that'll be available soon. Keep an eye out. You're hearing it here first. And then just apart from that, we have our newsletters every Monday, Friday. We have our writer who writes very inspirational newsletters to kick your week off on a good note.
Instagram. Official.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed the episode.
Bye.